Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSablos, DJ, Nikki Snacks, Crider, the Quan, Cosby. Those listening on ESPN 102.7. Austin, what up? Happy bye week to you all out there. Gents, the season started off absolutely hot. I was not the only one drinking Kool-Aid. We were passing that thing around. We got smacked in the mouth a little bit by Georgia, then had a win is a win. I know we're going to get to that. I know that will be said, but an ugly-ish win against Vanderbilt.
What?
And now we're what do you mean what? You don't think that was an ugly win?
I didn't think we were going to cover. I know we talked about it earlier, in the week. And then by game day, I was telling everybody in Nashville, I said, listen, forget the line. We're not going to cover. I said, I went back and watched a couple of games of Vandy, and a quarterback, as scrappy as it gets, their running back will probably play in the league, and people aren't talking about that. And the defense also. But on the road, the way they've been playing, we need to kind of forget something this year. We need to forget the name on the front of the jersey because Ohio State snuck by last week. Nobody's talking about that. Kentucky has beat someone. Vandy beat Bama. I mean, these guys at least have a few players on their team with the portal and different things like that. They can play football. So and then I go back to this. I get where you say it was an ugly win from a penalty standpoint, and let's be real. Those I'm about 50-50 on those even being real penalties.
Yeah.
Like it was garbage. If somebody get pancaked, that's not a holding. But we had a touchdown call back. We had penalties. Every time we had a drive, something stopped. It just wasn't as ugly. And then, quite frankly, we win by 10. If I call that last touchdown garbage time touchdown, they went in to prevent the worst defense on the planet. They were throwing it to holes. So I rewatched it again last night, preparing for this, and I go, that win just wasn't as bad as it kind of seemed. Quinn started off two tip balls. They scored 2 touchdowns, both of them ball at the 38, ball at the 28. So, no, I don't think it was, but I do get the whole pageantry of college ball.
I'm just saying the penalties like that. I mean, I know some of them are ticky-tack maybe, and Nick brought up the stat last week of where teams have been scoring on us because our defense has been so good, and they're scoring when it's only starting off in our zone. I just think from a stand, there were so many parts of the game where Quinn looked absolutely dynamic, but then there are parts of the game where the offensive line, which is supposed to be our biggest strength, like he's getting like the tip ball, you could almost attest a little bit to the offensive line getting blown back a little bit at times, and the penalties to the offensive line. So that's why I say it's an ugly win. I'm not poo-pooing Vanderbilt. I completely understand. They're a really strong team. They did beat Alabama. It's a ranked win. And Nick, to quote you again earlier this week, you were upset that we got moved to 6 because you know what? We went on the road and won a ranked game. Like, what's wrong with that? And Miami beat Florida State, who sucks. So I do feel, though, from what we could have done, I felt it was ugly in the sense that we didn't play a complete game. We didn't dominate. Like, at points, we were dominating through and through, whistle to whistle.
And to that point of beating a ranked team, too, you could say that, like, the AP didn't respect Vanderbilt, right? Like, it's not that quality of a win. Well, the AP is the one that put them ranked. They're the ones that made them 25.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like y'all the one that ranked them, and then you're saying, "Oh, it's whatever." It's again. That's why I don't pay attention to a lot of that. The cool piece, even after, I mean, Quinn at one point was like 17 for 17. I mean, the dude is so much good. I think that came out of the game. Do we need to continue to get better and put our foot on the throat and finish these games off probably better? Sure, but our defense, other than that last drive, didn't even give up. I think I looked up; they were at 180 some yards before that last drive. All in, I think they end up being 240. Like, dude, so I get what you're saying. There was some sloppiness about it, but again, the more I watch that game, and quite frankly, I think Vandy's going to win, 7, 8, 9, games. And so I think they're better than advertised. And it was just a weird game where, and by the way, on the O-line piece on the tip balls, Quinn was rolling out. He was going to the tight end on one time, and he was kind of out of the pocket on both of those. So the guys just ran in from the corner blitz and jumped up and tipped it. So they just made plays like that.
I thought it's always worth saying when you're talking about interceptions and quarterback quote unquote mistakes, like not all interceptions are created equal, for lack of a better term. Like you have to actually look and see, are you throwing to where the receiver's supposed to be and the receiver didn't make the right move, and that's why the DB ends up with the ball, right? I thought on that first one, that was just a great play by that defensive lineman. I thought the second one, the guy had broken into the backfield, so you just have to be a little. You got to keep your wits about you if you have the ball in your hand as a quarterback there, and if you need to throw the ball away to make sure that you're not putting the throw out in a dangerous position. Maybe it's a little bit more on Quinn, but again, it's still a tipped ball, and those are tough interceptions to heavily criticize. And like you said, Quan, he was 17 for 17 at one point. I think he ended the first half 19 for 21. So from that standpoint, a get right game for Quinn, certainly, and starting hot as he didn't in the Georgia game was something that we wanted to see, and he did do that. One thing we had talked about without you, though, Quan, even though it's a tipped ball, mentally, and you played offense, but I'm sure you can imagine what it's like when you're trying to play complementary football and one of the sides of the ball is not holding up their end of the bargain. 3 games straight, the initial drive for our offense results in a turnover with an interception. What is that like when you feel the other side of the ball, and how do you kind of hold each other up, but also hold each other accountable in a locker room to not let things get too out of hand? Because I could imagine if I were playing defense, I'd be frustrated in that standpoint. Hey, we're a dominant group. Will you just give us one drive at the beginning of the game and then we'll go and do our thing and rip their heads off?
Dude, that's it in a nutshell. Complimentary football is the worst thing we've done this year. It has not been complimentary. Our offense have put our defense in horrible positions. I would argue, I think our defense have given up less than 5 drives more than 60 yards. like literally, when they get the ball on the 20-25, they don't score. That's how good our defense has been. The problem is we keep giving the ball on the other 35, other 20. And so and then psychologically, you're like bleeping. You need, a first down and you're in field goal range. You need a couple of broken plays or a rushing quarterback and you run for a first down. So it's such a strain. Even the crazy other touchdown that I'm still trying to figure out how the ball got through all those hands. I mean, they're still that good where it takes 4 downs and they're at first and goal. So that it gets frustrating. Kudos to the defense, the way they play to their standard. Even, holding them to 3, different things like that. That's why this bye week was right on time, because one more game of that, you could see some breaking character because it just get worn out. It's like, come on, man, just take care of the damn ball. I don't care if you punt it to the other 10 yards. That's better than giving them the ball on our side of it, because there was a time where they didn't score touchdowns on us, and we're not helping ourselves. So yeah, they're gonna have to do better by that. Certainly on that side of the field, we ran the ball so freaking good that maybe even that's, run the ball until you get to the damn 50. I don't care. Just quit giving them the ball on that side of it. So we got to get better at complimentary ball. I know Sark actually talked a little bit about that this week in town. We all notice it. So that could get insanely frustrating. But kudos to our defense, still number 1 in the nation because of those situations, even though they've given up a few touchdowns now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from a personnel standpoint as well, I wanted to ask you what it's like. I mean, when you were playing, you kind of ran at your senior year was just you and Shipley, really, right? There wasn't that much movement, but we have so many guys. I feel 1 week it's Moore, 1 week it's Golden, 1 week it's Wingo, 1 week it's Bond. Is that just like a hot? And from the running back room, it was Wisner and it was Blue and Gibson, and now Gibson's completely fallen out of the rotation. So
yeah, why do you think that is?
Like, why is that kind of like, what's like, is it just hot hand stuff? Or they just ride in the hot hand? Is it as simple as that?
I think from a running back room, it's a hot hand piece of it. Gibson came in a couple of times. He actually did a really good job where 1 sack, I think it was Blue he went to the wrong side and Quinn got sacked. Gibson came in later, hit the linebacker blitzing, and Quinn stepped in the pocket and hit Gunnar Helm. So he's kind of coming in weird times, not so much running it as much. And then, Weiser, he's kind of from a carry standpoint, he's carrying the load, so to speak. And so that the running back room is different because of the injuries. They're still figuring it out, and it's by committee, but people are still playing, roles. Blue, like we always talk about, is still catching it out of the backfield and making people look stupid. So, I mean, they all have their roles and it's going well. Receiver's different. Receiver's actually pretty cool from a standpoint of Sark, right? Who has the defense is going to say, oh, man, I watched the film and Moore killed it last week. Well, okay, get on Moore if you want, because then Wingo is going to kill you this time, and then this guy's going to kill you that time, and you just have way too many dudes. And schematically, between the motion and what they're doing on defense, Sark is dialing it up. I mean, zero freaking, and could have had even bigger of a day, the way he did. So, and last but not least, what's really cool about it is watching the guys on the sideline. There's no, whoa, me, I didn't have a good day type deal. Their celebrations, they celebrate together, they dance together. It's cool to see that room eating at the level that we all thought they could. And nah, man, it anyone's day, depending on what the defense is kind of showing. And the beauty is any one of them can get it done. So
yeah,
that's the cool piece.
It seems like a nightmare just from a preparation standpoint from another team. Because I remember like being on the team and being scout team, like that's a walk-on's duty. Is like they give you a jersey number of like the star wide receiver or like the slot wide receiver from the other team, and like those are the three guys you have to be concerned about, right? Like you got your outside, you got your slot, you got your running back. Like the game plan for these specific guys and what the plays they run. But the fact that we've spread it out so much, different ways, different strengths, like it's a nightmare to game plan.
Yeah, we had.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's an interesting kind of thought process as opposed to a reliance on a player or a type of play you're relying on, or a star, right? Whether it's a running back or wide receiver, you're kind of relying on a scheme to be the main engine of what you're doing. And I think we saw against Georgia that when the connector of the scheme is having a challenging game, Quinn, because of the offensive line play, because their edge rushers were all over the backfield, that's where things can go awry, I guess. So it's an interesting thing. It's also like Sark is the ultimate schemer, but Kirby Smart runs a really, really well thought out and well executed, clearly defensive scheme. So I almost wish, I don't know, maybe this is just, I'm just thinking out loud here, but like, do we also want kind of a go-to punch as well? Where like, if there is a guy that we have to get the ball to, if Matt Stafford needs to get the ball to someone and convert a third down, he throws it to Cooper Kupp every single time. Is that a problem that we don't have that the optionality is our game plan?
Kind of seems like for us, it's been Gunnar Helm.
Yeah, I was about to say, nah, man, that's still there. And on the Georgia thing again, we could talk about fumbling on the 20-yard line. If you go back to where the game was a little more clean, Sharks, they still were running the same schemes, and they scored a couple of touchdowns and did their thing as well. Now, of course, one of them came from a nice big same situation pick, but it's easier. Again, the results are the results, but even rewatching that game, they just outnumbered us. And I'll be real with you. Watching Vandy, when we got outnumbered, we didn't have positive plays. So it's not so much that we need that go-to. What we need is blitz beaters. What we need is that 2-yard slant when they outnumber us, because that's not fair to the O-line. We keep saying, because when the O-line doesn't do this, well, my senior year, they did 0 blitz, Ohio State. Well, I actually had a 15-yard corner route. Well, you know what I did is I ran a 5-yard slant route, caught the ball, he missed a tackle, you score a touchdown. So you have things that make them wrong every single time.
Right.
Tom
Counter
Brady
to the counters. Yeah.
Regardless of the counters. And now again, you have to get it right though, because if they put somebody down there and pop out, you're gonna, screw that piece of it up. But for us, when you saw Quinn, when they did that, Quinn was back there burping the baby. He didn't have much. He was good, and then he delivered a great ball. So you have to have your eyes right. You have to have, essentially watch enough film to know what's up. And now you have to see. That's my only schematic issue, is not so much not scheming that person, which I still feel that our go-to is Gunner. It's scheming the blitzes that continue to land. And
yeah,
and
I mean,
and having that route. And I will say, It looked a little bit like Gunnar Helm did on that one interception because Quinn was getting the ball out pretty quick. But again, that guy blitzed from the corner. He jumped up again and made a great play. And these are D1 dudes, so we got to give them their play as well, their props.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah,
Oh, and
absolutely.
by the way, these guys getting the ball on a slant in space with limited guys back there, that's a problem because they all run 4.3s. And so we need to figure out, and this bye week could be that adjustment of, hey, if they outnumber us, they should pay because
Yeah.
now it's man, and let's do it. For some reason, right now, we haven't really been doing that. We've been waiting on it to work itself out or not necessarily seeing it, and that's what's caused the sacks.
We also didn't have Bond last week, and I know Gunner's been like is the go-to safety blanket, but I feel as far as like number one wide receivers go, it is Isaiah Bond and probably should be. So without him out there last week too, I think obviously DeAndre Moore has been fantastic. He stepped up, so I think not having him in there definitely hurt maybe from a personnel standpoint as far as getting that go-to guy going. But we got Silas Bolden going, who's he's just such a gamer, dude. He's like a guy that you have to get involved, like wants to make a big play, will do whatever it takes to make a big play. And if they're giving us empty space, like he's a guy that I hope Sark can start scheming in, because if he gets the ball and there's green in front of him, he's gone.
Yeah.
That's an easy 6.
And there's some things they set up that I was thinking, because we've been throwing it sideways a little bit, kind of an extension of our run. I was like, man, where's this play where we fake it there and we go deep? We actually did it in the end zone. Kudos to them. They actually read it pretty good. We end up going to Weiser and they got about a 12-yard gain. So it's things that are being set up. There's kind of the middle of the field. When we get to about the 35 to the 35, for some reason, that's where we see our most blitz. That's where they're bringing the house, and we haven't handled it very well. When we get past that point, Quinn's dealing. He's throwing, touchdowns all day long, or we're running him. Before that point, we're actually coming off the goal line pretty good. But for some reason, in that middle of the field, we need to figure out something because they're sitting in the house, and we haven't handled it all that great.
No, I mean, last game, as good as our defense was, we had 0 sacks and 2 tackles for a loss. Vanderbilt had 4 sacks and 9 tackles for a loss. So they're getting pressure and they're converting, which from a defensive standpoint, I would say we kind of get what's going on offensively, and there's a lot of things that we can easily fix, or not easily, but hopefully fix. Defense has been so dominant and so strong, especially the defensive backfield. Like Barron's made his money. We didn't have Makuba last game, but the other safety, McDonald's, filled in pretty admirably. I mean, Michael Taff he's earned money. Like to me,
pick, calls, fumble.
He's got to be a pro, right?
Bro, every scout I know has said he's shot up boards. They're like, this dude can go, and he's doing it every single week. He covered a tight end a couple of times, big old tight end who used to be a quarterback, I guess, for the Aggies or something like that, and made some heck of a plays. So no, he's certain. I think there's no think he's going to get a chance somewhere for sure.
So our DBs have been great. For me, the only issue on the defensive side, and I keep beating this drum, is just converting those hurries and converting those pressures. We talk about flipping the field and we talk about field position. Like that matters. Like getting the sacks. We didn't sack them once. I know he could move.
I was about to say, but that dude, I mean, Vince didn't get sacked very often. I'm not saying this guy is, but when I go back to on the sideline, Vince standing right there, he's like, that dude got it. Literally, this is Vince Young himself going, they were there, but I mean, that's I know that game pretty well. We're very different players per speed, size, blah, 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 blah. But mentality, you should have heard Vince giving that quarterback his due. He's like, listen, the guy was right there. He made a play. I mean, you even go back to their very first touchdown. Right there, turn around. He runs out. He does. I mean, you just got to give him his due. And it's easier said than done.
And that guy also was the highest rated SEC quarterback heading into our week too. So like he ain't no slouch. Like he was balling out.
No, he's good. And I was just looking it up. Bama sacked him 0 times as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The dude didn't get sacked very often. And by the way, that could be a tackle for 1. That's not a sack. Now you got hurry, you got the tackle, but he does not get sacked back there very often. And that's why they're always in these games. And if you look at their schedule, and I went back and I go, bro, they're in every freaking game. 2 overtime game.
That kid's gonna get drafted too.
Yeah,
maybe 4th, 5th round.
I think he's gonna be the Chase Daniels type dude. He's gonna be in the league for 9-10 years. He may not start. He's gonna come in relief, but he's such a leader, have so much grit that I think someone's gonna take that chance for that kind of come in when their guy get injured type of situation.
So am I crazy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I crazy? Like, is my issue with no sacks, not enough tackles for a loss, is that bad? Am I being over concerned?
I think this particular game, yes, because you have to play him differently. His legs is going to beat you. Not to mention, they don't throw it as much. So if a team throws it 25 times versus our norm of 45 to 50, well, you're not going to get as much. We got some sacks on Beck. We got picks on both of them. That's where we really we still got our turnovers and got one call back, which that was a good call. I was annoyed when it happened, but that was a targeting call and unnecessary targeting call.
Yeah,
that's the sloppiness that
stupid.
annoys me. But no, so the team, these guys are a running team. They zone read it. He got hurt for that series. The next guy came in, zone read it. And so you're not going to get a lot of sacks because you're going to get 60, 70% more runs than you are passes. So you're just not going to get sacks.
Yeah, that was a really stupid targeting call. I mean, obviously affecting that game itself, but taking yourself out of the first half as well for the Florida game too. I mean, just a completely unnecessary hit. I mean, maybe it was frustration, right? Just getting frustrated all game long, just getting kind of boned by the refs, but still completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. T, we'll start with you, then Nick, then Q, and then I'll pick up the scraps. Maybe a guy on offense. I mean, y'all are going to take mine. It's okay. I can live with it. Yeah. Guy on offense, guy on defense that you're looking to have a big final third of the season. We have Florida. We have Kentucky. I know everyone has circled this A&M game as they should, but they should keep their caps off their markers and circle that game in Fayetteville too. Because last time we went down there, we point to that game all the time as a huge turning point for our program recruiting wise. Last time we went down there was a disaster, and that team is playing some really strong football. So from an offensive standpoint and a player from a defensive standpoint, who are two guys that you're looking to elevate their game to that next level and really help us get to the college football playoff and hopefully SEC championship game?
Yeah. Also, just before I give my player, I told Quan this to Josh and Nick, but my mom, who's an LSU fan, was in College Station for the game against the Aggies. She called me yesterday and was like complaining. She's like, "I'm never going back to another game there. I don't want to go to games that aren't in Death Valley at LSU or at Texas," because obviously she has a lot of love for Texas because I went there. But it was just funny. She was like, they were throwing the horns down, and I kept asking those fans, like, what? I don't get it. Y'all are playing LSU. I don't understand. I was like, I was like, Mom, I don't know what to tell you. That's just kind of how they do it there. So that was just a fun little story to share. For me, it's obviously, Quinn's the obvious pick. Jake Majors, I think, needs to have a really nice second half. Let's go with an offensive lineman. He's had a couple of penalties, I think, in the last 3 games that were disciplinary. I would describe them as like extracurricular activities after the play. He's also had a few holding calls as well. He's a senior. He's one of our leaders in the locker room. Our offensive line, yes, the left tackle is the cornerstone there with Kelvin Banks, but all of those guys can play. All those guys can play at the next level. And I just think that whole group and unit has more to prove, and more to prove because there's more that they can do. There's more that they can impress the rest of the nation with. And while our assessment and your perspective is incredibly appreciated, Quan, about the actual nitty-gritty of what happened in the game against Vanderbilt, the media at large and the people that are ranking for the CFP, they don't care that we beat them by more, that we actually beat them by more than 3 points if you really break down the tape. They don't care. They couldn't give a crap. And I think our offensive line, they set the table, right? That's where the ball gets snapped from. That's where the line gets pushed. And that's what gives Quinn more time and our running backs more room, more lanes to operate, which opens up the scheme that Sark, so intelligently has put together for this offense. So Majors and the offensive line, that's what I want to see win the second half of the season. Big time.
Nice. Defensively?
I mean, there's so many different guys. I I would love to see Taff and Jade Barron continue to produce from a turnover standpoint. We were talking about Taff. Maybe right now he could be a 5th round pick, a 4th round pick. Like, keep climbing, bro. I'm pumped. That's such a good story because we talk about it all the time. It's like, it's
Austin
not just
kid.
the 5-star guys. Yeah, he's an Austin kid. He was a walk-on. He earns a scholarship, and here he is. And now we're talking about that he's NFL talent and he's NFL ready. That's as good of a story as you can script.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everyone loves that. Kind of reminds me of Hunter Renfrow when he was with Clemson on the offensive side.
Yeah.
For me, I'll start with defense. I think Trey Moore is a guy that needs to be highlighted. I mean, he was making plays all over the field last week against Vandy. Doesn't really show up completely on the stat line, but he was in there creating havoc, and I want him to have a huge back half of the season because, what did you come to Texas for? You leave UTSA, you had all those big sack numbers, but you come here to really put yourself at a premium, to have the stats, to have the scouts look at you, to also win, be at a top level program and develop yourself. And he's been pretty quiet to start the season, but I think if he has a big, back third of the season, then he can continue to raise his stock a little bit for the NFL draft, which I think he really wants to do, of course. But really need to see him make some more plays, just, creating pressure for us in terms of getting those quarterbacks uncomfortable. And then I'm just going to continue to hit home on the offensive side, the offensive line. Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams are 2 tackles that were getting a lot of praise, heading into the Georgia game, and got exposed a little bit there. And then, kind of got exposed this last game too against Vandy. They really need to pick it back up, gain their confidence, gain their stock a little bit back. Because look, you guys are 5-star recruits that are supposed to be top level pass blockers, and at the beginning of the season you acted like it, but you really need to continue to prove people that this is your brand of football. And it's kind of now or never for you guys, for your contracts, you know what I mean? So I think Kelvin Banks and Cam need to really step it up.
Yeah, agreed. Q.
Toss, to the point about the guys that are don't care about the style points. Yeah, they really don't pick the national champion. If we win by 1 for the rest of the year, every single game, we're going to win the national championship. So I get what you're saying, but I don't really care about them. We take care of our business, we're going to be fine. So just saying. And so the second part is, even with to Nick's point on the O-line, the quarterback has a role in sliding them where they need to go. So it's so connected in so many ways. And if we simplify it, we're going to be in trouble. But if you slide them the wrong way, we get outnumbered. It's so many factors. So they all need to do better. I still think it kind of starts with the leader. Kind of like the defense is doing their thing because of Jade. He's getting them all in the right place. By the way, was ready to play some safety too, if need be. So his versatility is a big deal. On offense for me, because of the bye week and guys getting healthy, is Bond. Y'all mentioned him earlier. What he can do over the top, what he brings to the table, the way you have to pay attention to him, makes everybody else better. Now, they've still been doing their thing. Our receiving core has lived up to the hype. But what Bond can do, and bigger than all of that, Quinn's relationship and ability to hit Bond. When Bond's in the game, he usually eats, and him and Quinn have a really good connection, almost similar to what we saw with Mitchell last year. And so I think the second half, he needs to get back out there, stay healthy, and I think he's going to help that offense tremendously. On defense, it actually has everything to do with that game y'all talked about in Fayetteville. It's Anthony Hill. You say, well, the dude is literally top 1. He is. But in order for us to reach our goals, that running quarterback at Arkansas, Anthony Hill, is going to be the difference maker. His ability to close, his ability to, dissect the zone read, boom, we're in the right spot, and then this quarterback runs out there. Because I don't know if y'all saw, he did a sick play around there and scored the touchdown on Mississippi State. It was almost high schoolish, but they don't have an Anthony Hill, and Anthony Hill can be the eliminator. And again, that dude's good enough. He's going to make some plays. But if you limit those, like an Anthony Hill can, and he continues to do that to all the quarterbacks who are about to play, I think he continue to play to the level that he is. Bond comes back. He's healthy. The offense looks different when he's in there. with some adjustments from an O-line standpoint, and then we'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously aligned with all you guys. There's tons of guys you could shout out. Cam Williams was mine, 12 penalties this season, leading by double of the next guy, which is not great. And then against big teams, he had 0 against Louisiana Monroe, 0 against Colorado State. But when the competition got a little tougher, those penalties flew up. He had 2 last time, 2 against Georgia, 4 against Michigan. So him cleaning it up a lot of it is going to be really helpful. But I'll say DeAndre Moore, so much was said, and we want Jonte to get his time. We want him to develop. We want him to be a good receiver. But he was really hyped for us coming into the season, as was Golden, who was a big, transfer recruit, as was Bond. DeAndre Moore is still a top 75, top 100 recruit. DeAndre Moore was still supposed to be a really talented dude. And just as much as anybody, if not more, he's made the time on the field count. Whenever he's on the field, whenever he's running routes and making plays, he makes those plays count. Like there's just it's tough to describe because there's no stat I could throw behind this. But that guy is consistently making big plays and has an edge and almost has a chip on his shoulder as the quote unquote forgotten receiver in the room going into the year. Because it was Wingo, Golden, Bond. We were psyched about Bolden. Obviously, Jonte was a higher recruit than him. And he was kind of the 6th man on the depth chart. Like, he wasn't really a guy that I think a lot of us anticipated being such a big playmaker. And now when you see this from him, consistently making big plays, consistently finding the end zone, and being such a massive threat for us, like, I want to see him continue to elevate his game. And I wouldn't be upset if he elevated himself to the number 1 go-to guy like we were talking about. It would be great if it was Bond. We brought him in for that. It'd be great if it was Golden. We brought him in for that too. But I could totally see DeAndre Moore asserting himself as the wide receiver 1 the rest of the way. And I wouldn't be upset about it because he's got great hands. He's very physical. He goes up and makes catches. Like, he's aggressive to the ball. He's a very talented, hungry guy, and I want to see him continue to succeed. And defensively, Baron Sorrell leads the team with 28 total pressures.
I didn't know that.
Okay. I'll throw some stats at you guys. You guys know I love my PFF. Some stats for you. Number 2 is Trey Moore with 16 pressures total. Baron Sorrell has 28 total pressures, 3 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, which is, I guess, against my point, devil's advocate, my point, they're right there. They're right on the money with 7 quarterback hits. And he has 18 hurries. Trey Moore has 16 hurries, 0 quarterback hits, 0 sacks. Him, Sorrell, Burke, Sorrell, Burke, and Moore, and Savia, who doesn't play nearly as much as these other guys, they're all graded less than 40 in terms of tackling. So they are amongst the worst tacklers on the team. So I would love for that group, and I'll go with Sorrell, who really has been producing at such a high clip and not necessarily being discussed. I'll go with Sorrell. Finish those hurries. Finish those hits. And that changes the game. And yes, we won't go against the Pavia, who's a running quarterback. We'll see it in Arkansas, not as much in Florida and not as much in Kentucky, and not nearly as much in A&M, depending who they throw at us, right? I mean, because they can mix and match. So when you have more pocket passers behind there, I want Sorrell to really elevate his stock too, because I think he can. He was a guy that was so talented last year or 2 years ago, even kind of got, masked a little bit last year. And I think has quietly come on this year. So I'd love to see him continue to produce at this high clip and just finish the job.
Man, we didn't say Gunnar Helm. Look at, we got to give Gunnar Helm some love, man. He's been.
I think we have. I mean, I think Gunnar. I mean, like we've talked about. I think we've given Gunnar Helm a ton of love.
No,
he's there.
I'm more talking about, and honestly, I think that's the point. We're talking about guys we want to kind of see even elevate a little bit more. Yeah. Gunnar's been doing his thing. When you give it to him, give him an opportunity, he's eating. So we just want to see him keep doing what he's doing.
Is there a guy like that?
Undoubtedly been the most consistent offensive player on our team this year.
Most improved player.
Both of those categories checking both those boxes.
That was not even a huge issue. Not even close. For us. Maybe it was almost an issue for us going, who's going to replace JT Sanders? We love JT. We love JT's production. He was amazing.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be Nye Black from Bama, and he's gotten 3 catches all season long.
Yeah, and he can't see the field because Gunner's too good. I mean, Gunner is definitely the most improved player. Was there a guy?
And because Juan Dixon is a beast blocker, also.
Juan Dixon's a moose.
I
Yeah,
love that guy.
Juan Davis.
Yeah,
Juan Davis, sorry.
Juan Dixon's the basketball player from Maryland.
Yeah,
right?
Maryland guy. Yeah.
Back in the day. Q, was there a guy when you played that kind of elevated his game like that his senior year and maybe surprised a lot of people like Gunner?
Yeah, mine was Chris Obanaya. Really, we kept, our line wasn't great. No offense to my boys out there, but it wasn't great. And but they worked hard. And the more we got into that season, you go back to the 45-35 game versus Oklahoma, Chris sealed the deal. We had good stats and we threw it around. But going back to Bama last year, the games we're talking about that we would have needed, it didn't work itself out with Georgia. But I'd even say that this game on the road, we ran the ball very well. And so Obi was a beast. He wasn't, he didn't have all the hype. He wasn't Jamal, Benson, all the guys that we had in the past. But I think Obi had a 9-year career because he got that second half, he balled out and he took that momentum right into the league. Undrafted, or was he late? I don't know. But and then just had a heck of an NFL career. So from an offensive standpoint, he certainly was that dude.
Was there anything like he did you remember prep wise, or was it just, hey, I got my shot, I'm going to take it?
Man, he was splitting time with Vondrell McGee. I mean, it was almost a committee deal that we're seeing because of injuries now, but he did everything right. So what he did was he was as smart as all get out. He actually got the freaking no, he didn't. That was actually Acho. He was close to getting the academic Heisman because he had a 4.0 his entire life. But the knowing the blitzes, going back to the study in the film, being right every time to protect Colt. Colt got injured a few times, so protecting him in the past game was a big deal. So Obi didn't get those wrong, and he met him and hit him in the mouth, and then ran hard. He talk about tackles for loss, even to that quarterback. You just didn't see a lot of tackles for loss with Chris because he hit the hole right, made a guy miss, and always was moving forward. And then last but not least, he was most consistent guy to catch the ball out of the backfield like Blue. And so he just elevated his game. He took it personal that he didn't get the love, and then he was patient too because we still were a pass first team, but he did all those things right, and more times than not, we get a little lead. Coach Brown rewarded him, and he had several games, 100 here, 150 there, closing it for us. So he just did a lot of things right. So he would have certainly fit the description of what we're talking about on somebody just finishing the season in a good way.
Yeah, and then another thing I'll ask you from your time playing, like you had the A&M game last. None of these guys have ever experienced that. This coaching staff hasn't experienced that. There's still like Toss talked about it, like his mom's at the LSU A&M game. They got the horns down. I mean, there's so much buildup. They're undefeated in SEC play, right? They might lose this. I mean, South Carolina ain't no joke. They have to go to do that. There's a lot of weird games on the schedule outside of like obviously the big Ohio State, Penn State. There's a lot of weird games on the schedule this weekend. Oregon, Michigan. Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if Michigan were to somehow upset Oregon in the big house, as far as resume builder and what that win looks like for us, that's huge, right? But how do you prevent from looking ahead and feeding into the rivalry? Even with this, it's so different with this day in social media. Like if you're on social media, it's like, especially Twitter, it's everywhere. Like, how do you like stay focused in these games and like
know what's crazy about it?
Take care of business.
Yeah, man. Before the season started, that was a hottest ticket to get in the stadium. We didn't know how we felt pretty good about our season. We didn't know, A&M comes out, they're not, they come out and Notre Dame beats them. Wigman didn't play very well. Dude, that ticket right now, I have Aggie clients who call me. They're very wealthy people. They're like, I can't afford to go to the game because to get in the standing room only is like $950 right now. And so, man, it's cool though. It's one thing to talk about it, and we always will as fans, but no player on that stadium or in that stadium or on that field can look ahead. You have Florida coming into town. You need to take care of business. You lost the last one at home. You need to return, get back to the winning side of playing at home, and you're coming off a bye week, which even more reason that you should be healthier and take care of business. these guys are going to know because weirdly, the NIL social media world, they see it. And I'd actually argue the interesting piece is Quinn didn't play that great in the playoff game, in my opinion. He got better, but he didn't play all that great. Quinn didn't play that great in the Georgia game. That game in College Station is going to be energy wise on those levels. And so I think every time he gets that, he gets a little bit better. So I think he's going to be in the right headspace for, you know, what's going on there, especially as he gets healthier. So, man, you got to take care of business now. The fact that, in my opinion, defense is why we're as good as we are right now. Until the offense get back to executing like they know they like we all feel they can. Defense travels. What the most consistent thing out of all the things we've seen to be 7-1 right now is because that defense is balling. And so that's always a good thing. They're not going to stop. They're playing with their hair on fire. So that helps us in every game, especially with the teams we're about to see. And now I'm going to tell you, you're crazy if you don't think that atmosphere is going to be similar in Fayetteville. And so they're going to have multiple chances to just kind of get in that moment and perform. And so by the time it gets to College Station, which I think I was talking to somebody there, they're predicting 220 to 50,000 people just being in that town, which I'm not sure it can actually handle that.
It
Almost F1 level people been in that town. So it's fun to talk about it. We're all none of us is crazy enough to not realize A&M fans in my office. I'm not sure about this weekend. They're realists, because right now they've gotten lucky from a standpoint of who can prepare and not. And I think they can they're gonna have to adjust to where when you actually game plan for them, are they still gonna be able to execute on that level? So they have some things to figure out. They're not world beaters. I mean, even that game, LSU imploded. Now A&M helped because they started balling, but South Carolina should have beat LSU too, but they imploded like LSU did on A&M. They had like 4 turnovers. So
that's gonna be a really interesting game.
It was very interesting. You know what's crazy about all of that? And I don't know if y'all been paying attention to. The SEC is like leading all Power Fives in turnovers. Like, dude, we're only +3 in the turnover margin, but I think we like lead the country in getting them. We should be like +15. We're +15. We're undefeated and freaking blowing everybody out by 40. So why is the SEC leading? And the teams that don't have a lot of them are the bottom half because they're playing so conservative and they're not scoring. But these top 6 to 8 teams in the SEC, everybody has 1 million turnovers.
Can I try to answer that maybe? And
yeah,
you guys, we talk about I'll look to the NFL, right? And I think it's risen a bit this year back to normal. But last year, at the beginning of the year, quarterback play has been down. And I think we point to the growth and the exponential growth of the defensive players in the league. Even the bad teams, not maybe the very bad team. Okay, you look at the Titans, right? On the defensive line, they have Jeffrey Simmons. That's like an all-pro caliber defensive player. Every team has some stud defensive player that could take T-Sweat, right? Like they have like L'Jarius Sneed. They have like studs on the defense. Like they're 1-6. They stink. They're horrible. They have studs all across the board on the defense. So if I look at all these teams, like if you look, who's like James Pierce on Tennessee, he could be a top 15 pick. Nick Scorton on A&M edge could be a top 15 pick. Williams, Walker. I mean, we just experienced it on Georgia. Kyle Kennard, who's like one of the leading sack guys in all of college football, let alone the SEC. So quarterback play and offensive line play, like the guys can't get that much bigger, right? You could get faster and more athletic, but you still have to have that size. So I don't think offensive line play is caught up with the defensive line play and how bigger and faster those guys are getting and how much easier it is to be successful with penalties and all that. So as these defensive play, and the SEC is the best thing to quote unquote replicate the NFL, and we see this in the NFL. The defensive players are getting exponentially better, and I don't think the offensive players are as experienced and growing at the same capacity. It's not changing fast enough.
No,
I think these quarterbacks are like getting hit and rushed, and like Barron Sorrell, who we really haven't talked about, 28 hurry. It's crazy.
Yeah, and to go off your point a little bit, like you look around the NFL about who the big names are, who the faces are of these franchises. Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. Like, these are your household names that people were heralding as potential Hall of Famers. TJ Watt, JJ Watt, like potential Hall of Fame career guys, that are getting massive contracts, who are just absolute freaks on the D line. And that's why you see teams in the draft, that go after those guys early in the top 5, but also you see a guy like Joe Alt from Notre Dame. You have to go get him at number 5, because there's just not as many guys around the league that can defend people like that. And that's the same goes for college football. And I'm not sure what needs to happen necessarily on terms of just development and how to game plan for that. Maybe there's going to be a renaissance at some point that say, okay, you know what, our O linemen need to be a little bit slimmer, they need to be quicker and more explosive, but maybe we're not going after the 350 pounders anymore. We're going after the 290ers. You know what I mean? So we can match speed on speed. Maybe that's something that has to happen at some point, but I'm with you. I mean, it's a glaring issue in the NFL for sure.
Everywhere you turn. I mean, dude, yeah. Sorry, Tate.
I would add in the optionality and the intention for a lot of defensive coordinators in the NFL, and then I think this is translated to college too, to run that shell too high safety look, where you have all this talent that you're talking about on the defensive line and guys that can get to the quarterback and make plays, and then you're forcing quarterbacks in the NFL. They're the professionals. They're more used to it. They're the best of the best, to dice up a defense with short throws, short across the middle of the field, short to the outside, screen routes. And then you look at college 10 years ago, like the type of throws that college quarterbacks now have to make in comparison to what they had to make 15, 20 years ago are completely different. College quarterbacks were, I'm going to hit my guy over the top because my guy's going to beat the DB on the outside, and maybe there's one safety, but if we pull the safety with some play action or something like that, my guy's faster and I can get him. And all I have to know how to do is throw an accurate deep ball. And now you have to make every type of throw. And if you have that shell coverage, guess what? You got to make more throws. And the more throws you have, the more opportunities you have to make a mistake. And the more throws you have to do, the more throws you have to get out, the more opportunities there are for those defensive players, those edge rushers, to get to you and put a hit on you, get you while you're throwing it. And then it's a float, it's a duck, or Quinn Ewers, it's 2 balls that get tipped at the line because those defensive players are really talented. And then there's 2 interceptions, and we're talking about that aren't even his fault. So everything about the defense, yes, elevated. Everything about the offense, that much more challenging. And it's a really tough game and gamut for these quarterbacks to play. And you talk about that A&M LSU game. The reason why A&M came back, Garrett Nussmeier made mistakes and he turned over the ball. So defense travels, but how critical? I mean, Quan, you're exactly right. This will be the most critical game of Quinn Ewers' career. And we've said that a few times now. Yeah. And that's the thing about him being evaluated as an NFL prospect that's really interesting, but also in a lot of respects not fair in comparison to some of the other guys, because he will have been tested in ways that we have not seen most NFL prospects. Trey Lance was not tested. That guy was the 3rd overall pick. No one had seen him play. And against who? This guy has beaten Michigan in their house. He's beaten Alabama in their house. He will have to go and beat Texas A&M in College Station. That will be the most contentious environment he has ever played in, no doubt. Arkansas, this coming next weekend. Like, you're absolutely right. It's going to be a tough place to play. We talked about Diego Pavia. I agree with you guys. Like, that guy is a B. He's like a B+ at every skill that you would possibly need as a quarterback. And Taylor Green is a lot like that. That guy's got wheels. He can move. He has a 32-yard rush. That's his longest of the season. Like, we have to be disciplined because that's a different look that we have not seen besides Pavia. I mean, Carson Beck don't run. None of the other quarterbacks that we played run, right? Alex Orji couldn't even get on the field against us for Michigan. So they go with the other guy. He couldn't run. Like, it'll be a great test against Arkansas for our defense. Same thing against A&M, but quarterback, the job, in my opinion, has become more difficult too, and more opportunities to make mistakes.
What if I told you Nussmeier was top 6 in pass attempts? What other category would you guess he's top 6 in?
Interceptions. I can tell you right now, interception. By the way, Pat Mahomes, more interceptions than he's had, I think maybe even touchdowns right now. You know, and let's be real, he's the best in the business, even on the next level. And I go back to, it's really good point per You got these unbelievable. That's why Aaron Donalds and all them D tackles and D ends are becoming they're the quarterback level contracts because they can disrupt a team. Tom Brady's 2 losses is because the Giants defensive line was on them like nobody's business. And so I think people are seeing it for that. And it almost goes back to I'm gonna give Quinn a little love. Some of the windows he hit even this weekend, those are NFL windows. That one to Gunnar Helm we talked about earlier, some of the passes, a couple of throws we've seen even at home that he's hidden. That's why the NFL is going, people have lost their mind. This dude can go. We see the way he's hitting NFL windows, and that collectively from a collegiate level, they're not doing it very well. That's why, like you said, old boy from LSU. I mean, even Beck's supposed to be the first overall pick.
Right. All 3 first-round talent guys from an NFL prospect.
All
grade.
first round. And they're all throwing, they're having 2-3 interception games. And so these defenses are the real deal. And schematically and athletically, like they're just beasts back there.
And it's also an experience thing too. Like Quinn's got 3 years of experience. Like who are the best 2 quarterbacks right now from the rookie class? Like Caleb's been good, but he's been spotty. Jaden. Like Jaden and Bo Nix, which is like 5-year starters, man. Like 4-year starters. Like Quinn's started for 3 years. They've started. They've so like it's so ridiculous. Like,
Tom Brady went on a rant about this, by the way.
Who did?
Oh yeah,
Tom Brady went on a rant about this. He talked exactly about this. He said these guys, 3 years in college are going into the league. We're setting them up for failure.
And then
exactly
we're setting them up for failure.
Exactly. Yeah. Why should it be different from college to the pros?
Yeah.
You need time to get it together. And then the pros like, all right, yeah, just go in.
Yeah, Tom basically said, he was like, look, you get to Michigan. I was the 7th quarterback on the depth chart. Then I work my way to 3rd. Then I work my way up to starter, right? Then I get drafted. And then I sit for a whole year. And then I finally get my opportunity. Like, he's like, it's a tragedy that some of these kids go to college, play for 2 or 3 years. Some guys play for 2 years, right? And then go to the NFL, and then they expect them to play year 1 and just pretty much ruin their career.
Bro, Mac Jones played 1 year. 1 year. Trey Lance Tossman. I mean, how did he even play? Like, barely.
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson. I mean, it's not that kid's fault. It's not. He's not ready to go.
The best one of all. Not only did he didn't play that long, he went to the worst organization on the planet, Young, with the Panthers. I mean, God.
Oh, Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, yeah, with the Panthers.
That might be a size. Do you think that's a size? Is that a size thing? Do you think or no?
No.
Well, Can we? Well, Kyler is. I think he obviously is small, but he is so mobile that he's able to break out of the pocket and open up vision lanes for himself. That's
Kyler's in his own world. Yeah, he's in
his own. But the size. I mean, we're talking about the quarterback play and how it's been down. That's why there's been such an emphasis on these guys that have the quarterback profiles of Josh Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, like all guys that can move out of the pocket. So as many mistakes as they make, they at least can limit and temper some of what the defensive freaks athletically can do to them, right? And they can get outside and convert on a 3rd and 6 where you might just not have the time to throw for that conversion like you could have 10 years ago. I mean, the Patrick Mahomes point is like, he is undeniable. He is the best quarterback in football. It's just not even close. And until he threw, I think like a few weeks ago, a 30+ yard touchdown to our guy X, he hadn't done that for like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So crazy. What we're talking about, it's like, if you don't think it's true, like it just is. I don't know what to tell you.
He lost the Super Bowl to Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles literally on the defensive line. Oh, Tom Brady gets the MVP. It should have been the defense.
Yeah.
They held Mahomes to 9 points, man. That defensive line absolutely ate them alive. It's just not a coincidence. And so I think to the whole overarching point, it's like, that's why SEC ball has so many turns. The defensive guys are the best. I didn't even mention the guy we're going to see in Arkansas, Landon Jackson. He's sacking dudes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, dude. He's balling out. Everybody has a dude like this. The Giants are 2-6. They are horrible. They are a joke of a franchise right now. They might have the defensive player of the year. And Dexter Lawrence, he might literally win the DPOY, and they might win 5 games. That's how everybody.
I watched. Who'd they play this past weekend? The Giants.
The Steelers. Steel Curtain.
Yeah. I watched Russell Wilson break a sack from Dexter Lawrence, and then he got swallowed by Brian Burns. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Nightmare, dude. It's like miserable.
Yeah, you juke one guy and then you get
You
smashed
got
by the
Watt.
next.
You got the dudes. It's just so freaking good. Now, bring it back to Longhorns. This is why I'm so damn high still on the Longhorns. Our defense has these guys. Our defense, we have the #1 defense in the country, gentlemen. And that's why I'm so fired up about where we are. Yes, we need to get healthier. Yes, Quinn needs to take care of the ball. And if those two things happen and our defense continues, dude, they're 8 games in. They haven't played any. I mean, they played Georgia. They played Michigan. They have not played scrubs. They even against Georgia had less than 300 yards of offense on our defense. Dude, I think they were like 270. I mean, that in today's era, that's I mean, you have more in 7-on-7. So that's why I'm fired up about where we are. And I think after rewatching the game a couple of times, that's why I was like, oh, it was ugly. I'm gonna take that back. It was, but holy cow, we're as advertised is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, you say to get healthy. If we get Makuba back, I think that changes a lot of things.
Makuba. Well, I mean, and then on offense, I mean, we get our guys back. Bond, like that's the funny part. People are so enamored, especially we're talking crap to UT, that I was laughing because we watched a game. One of my friends is an attorney, and they watched a game at Oklahoma, and they said, if I hear they have receivers out one more time and we don't talk about the 4 running backs we have out, I'm gonna go crazy. And it's like we're getting like this, oh yeah, Texas need to do better, but everybody else, well, they do have these receivers. No, everybody has people out, including us. Our starting quarterback was out for 2 games. So as people are getting healthy and as that defense keep rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
I like where we are. I like the position we're at, reaching our goals.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I think we're in great shape. Should be a really fun end of the season. Again, no easy games. Obviously, the Fayetteville and A&M are brutal environments that hopefully we live up to the hype, and defense, you said, travels, and hopefully Quinn and Sark and the offense travel well too. And then we take care of business against Florida, who's kind of coming on a little bit after a really rough start. They played Tennessee really tight, Rocky Top, and they smacked Kentucky. No one's really talking about that in our schedule. Florida walloped Kentucky. So they have that new quarterback in. No game should be taken lightly, but if we're at full health, I like our squad, like you're saying, Q, against anybody's. And I'll even say Makuba, I was just looking it up, played 47 snaps against the Georgia Bulldogs. Imagine if he played 70 like Taft did. I'm not saying we win. I'm just saying things. He's one of our best defensive players. They had big plays at the end of the game. I'm just saying
wasn't he the one
you have to change schemes with him not in there?
Yes.
He had the pick at the very beginning of the game where he tipped it to himself. That was nasty. Yeah.
It's an insane pick. He's a stud. All right, guys. Great as always. Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, the Quan Cosby. Horns up. We will see you guys next time after the bye.
Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.